off with the Capital District Resource Corporation, CRC. Sarah. And the first thing we're gonna do is we have to elect officers for the year. And we have Nina Finger-Smith, Robert Galuccio, Bill Gerlach, Brian Keeler, Helen Kozel, Carmine Pirro, and Sarah Sterling. So what I'm gonna need is a motion and a second to accept slate of officers for the year.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Want to say everybody worked hard on their campaigns this year and got elected.
Yeah.
It was a tough one.
Yeah.
Campaign finance report.
Right.
What they took to dinner.
What we have next is the administrative director's report, the treasurer's report.
Morning.
Morning. That one, the treasurer's report.
So minor, but.
No, it's just
Okay,
supposed
here
to
we
get
go.
wrong.
As you can see, we have $1,739 in the bank. That's net of the $5,000 that CEDC granted as a grant, provided as a grant to Capital Resource Corporation to pay its legal fees, well, no legal fees, but to pay its accounting fees and its insurance. On the P&L on the next page, you'll see that we had income of $5,000, a grant from CEDC. We paid $3,100 in accounting fees, $1,300 for insurance, leaving us $539 in the bank. At the February CEDC board meeting, I'm going to request another $5,000 award. In the packet also is the UHY audit letter for this year. But I had pulled out the fee. It did go up. About 8%. And an example for the IDA, it went up from 8,950 to 9,200. It went up from 3,100 to 3,800. Everything's going up. It is difficult because even though we have no activity, the review and compliance component of what they do is an issue and does take work. I am getting concerned about the escalators on the fees, and they have more and more calling to they wanted to do progress payments on our audits, and I so we don't do progress payments. We can deliver the deliverable and the product. We'll be happy to pay what we agreed. It's 3,200. I'm sorry, this one that's only 3,200. So they didn't go up as much. So I do think they recognize that there was not a lot of addition, there was no work here. The CDC board has asked that we're paying $30-some thousand a year there for our audit, primarily because we're now having to do a single audit because of the amount of federal funding we received. That may change next year. We'll go back to the straight form audit. But they have asked that I go out for an RFP in April for the following year. I know we've talked about this, Rick, before. I mean, there's a cost to doing business, and at the same time, as a public entity, there's an obligation to be sure that competitive pricing. And when you look at both of these, the fact that there's no activity it is a concern because I go into my full report the projects that are coming up. And I hate to see it jump because, oh, now you have activity, we're going to go to $10,000. Are there any other questions with respect to either the balance sheet, the P&L, or discussion of the fees? Otherwise, if there's not, are we doing committees, Lisa? Okay, so we have to have the audit letter approved by the committee first.
Well, we got to vote on the treasurer's report. So what we need is a motion and a second to accept the treasurer's
I'll make a
report.
motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So. All right. Next, we need a motion and a second to pause the meeting.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now what we have to do now is we have we're going to open the audit committee meeting. And that's the first one for CRC in your packet. And
We do have the resolution, Mr. Chairman, to approve the audit engagement letter for $3,200.
correct,
UHY advisor.
right. So what we would need is a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
The other 4 items under consent agenda, Mr. Chairman, can be considered with a single resolution.
Correct. So what we have also is the open and the hold the finance committee. First, I gotta go back if there's any.
We've got to do the second resolution for the audit committee,
We have to do the consent agenda.
the consent agenda.
The consent agenda for the audit committee. So what we would need is a motion and a second.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we're gonna do
Public comment
public comment on that.
and then an adjournment.
We're gonna adjourn that one. Okay, we didn't need a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion.
Second, adjourn.
Ellen second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next, we have the finance committee for CRC. And Mike just did the,
So we have presented the treasurer's report, so we should just approve it here again.
okay. So what we need is a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have the consent agenda. And
All the documents are attached to the packet.
yeah, everything,
With the minutes, the charter, the discharge of duties, the committee evaluations, and the investment report. There were no changes to the committee charter.
and your treasurer's report is right on here. It's the same we just went over. So we need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Public comment,
We have anybody on?
no, okay.
With the record show.
Let the record show. All right, the next we have,
A motion to adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
committee meeting. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Next, we have the governance committee. And we have the consent agenda.
I've got a question.
Sure.
I was reading the charters and under capital resource, the, talks about choosing the board members. And it says we will assist and choose. And then I went to the, I believe it's the IDA ones, and those paragraphs have been taken out, sentences. And I wondered if we can be clear about who
Would you like to table the
chooses board members.
Well, the membership of the committee shall be set forth in accordance with Article 4, Section 1 of the bylaws.
Yeah, I didn't get to read the bylaws, so.
The committee members shall be appointed by and will serve at the discretion of the board of directors. So your
Yeah,
committee may designate one member as its chair. Members shall serve until their resignation or retirement. Where feasible, the former chair of the governance committee will serve on the committee. So basically, the chair, well, the board of directors appoint the members of this committee. The board of directors of
yeah,
the corporation.
but then I think they talk about, sorry, I put some notes here. Because what we do is the board of supervisors.
No, this is for the committee. Board of Supervisors appoints you to the corporation board, the corporate board. And the committee is established by the board of directors themselves.
But this is the charter for the CRC.
This is, well, we're
It's
looking,
for the governance committee.
this is the charter for the governance committee solely.
Okay,
Because you're absolutely right, the board of supervisors appoint you to serve on this board at the same time that you're appointed to serve on the ITA board. You're appointed to serve on
Okay.
both.
thanks.
So you're right, you've got, and, you know, I think that at CEDC, we've changed it where the, instead of the board of directors appointing the committee members, we have the chair of the board appointing the committee members approved by the board.
Yeah, we went through this whole thing of changing
Yeah.
everything.
Why don't we approve this if we
Yeah.
could for, and then Andy and I will take a look at these like we did with the CEDC board to be sure that the language is all the same.
Yeah, it's just noticing
I think
some difference.
the only one that often is different is the audit committee where they pick their own chair. Okay,
Thanks.
thanks, Sarah.
Motion to approve.
Second.
the consent.
Second. Okay, motion to approve.
I'll make the motion, Sarah.
First.
I was making the motion.
First one first.
I don't need to do-
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And public comment? None, so we're all set. We're gonna, right, we're gonna need a motion second to adjourn the governance committee meeting.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now I need a motion a second to reopen the CRC meeting. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now on this one, we have we have the consent agendas, which we just went through on our three committees. On this one, Mike,
We can approve the
treasurer's report is all set.
And then if you could do the consent agenda, which includes everything under the heading from both the board and the committees, then we can, before you go to public comment, I can give you a brief administrative report.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is approve the consent agenda that's down here, correct?
That's
Before you
correct.
read the report. So what I'm gonna need is a motion and a second.
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
As the administrative report, we will once again go out and reach out to the not-for-profit organizations in the county that have the largest budget, operating budget, to see if they have any development plans that would benefit them by using the Capital Resource Corporation. As you know, the Capital Resource Corporation basically provides us with the authority to provide IDA type benefits to not-for-profits. We are basically staying open in the event that the hospital needs to issue bonds, because they were the last group that used this entity. And we also understand that there could be several large not-for-profits in the arts and cultural arena that might have an interest, particularly with interest rates being high. When interest rates were low, and you could borrow 2 to 3%, 1.5% tax exempt bond wasn't as attractive because of the transactional costs that were added to it. But now it's certainly conceivable. As an example, the Shaker Museum, which is a $25 million project, or the in Chatham, where the hospital was going to build a garage or a new office building, now that they're part of the medical center. This could be a valuable resource to an entity like that, which is why we've been struggling every year as to whether to turn in the keys or keep asking CEC to put $5,000 in it. But we're hedging our bets, and I encourage us to continue one more year doing that.
Would Habitat for Humanity be something that an agency that would qualify for a program here?
Just, thinking it through, it's possible in the context of doing a major project, but not one house at a time.
Okay, but aren't they in South Greenport? They're down by Alvarez's, across from there, where the baseball park was proposed years ago.
I think that's a separate parcel, but I know they were looking at buying a property to build parts of houses.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Because the gentleman who I think owns where the baseball park was going to be is talking to us about another project.
Okay.
But I think, they got a big grant from the state where they're going to pre-build components of houses so that they can do more than 2 or 3 a year. But they're on our list. It's more just to send out an annual letter that we're available if you need us. And some people have called to say, well, what's it all about? So it's just to raise that visibility. But thank you.
Did they buy the building?
I thought they were buying the building down there.
The building that's there on that property.
Let's look at the map, because I think we might be talking about adjacent properties,
Yeah,
because
well, there's the building and then there's the back lots.
the land has septic on it already. It's already been, and that's the property that the other gentleman owns and was looking at. It's in Livingston.
Yes.
Yeah, I call it South Greenport, but it is Livingston.
It's
It's Livingston.
Yeah. But we work very closely with Habitat. Chris Brown's not here this morning, but on our housing side, great, thanks. I'll look into that, Bill. I appreciate it.
Okay.
That concludes my report, and I believe absent public comment.
Any public comments? Nobody's on. All right, what I'll need is gonna need a motion and a second for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving right on. Next, we have IDA, and we're gonna have, we'll be opening the meeting, and the first thing we have to do is elect our officers. And again, it's the same slate as we had for CRC. Nina Finger-Smith, Carmine Piro, Bob Galuccio, Bill Gerlach, Sarah Sterling, Brian Keeler, and Helen Colson. All right, we're gonna need a
Need a motion?
A motion and a second, elect officers. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll need a motion and a second to pause this meeting.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. What we need is for the audit. Just find what's wrong here. The audit committee agenda. We have the engagement letter.
Again, as we discussed, the 2024 fee was $89.50. The proposed fee in the audit letter was $9,200. That's a $250 increase, which is 3%. And we recommend that the board approve the audit letter.
So. Should have put on that
At the committee level to recommend.
separate or with the whole consent. That's a separate, that's a separate, okay, so what I'm gonna need is a motion and a second, to accept the audit engagement letter.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The consent agenda, once again, consists of the minutes, the charter, and the discharge of duties, and the committee evaluation.
Any questions? If not, I need a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Is there any public comment? Nobody's on this time, so.
Elon Musk.
Who's that? Elon?
Yeah.
I
You
quit
auditing us.
I quit that before.
Your hearing's good.
Huh?
Your hearing is good.
I always paid attention in school, never took a book home.
I was always told time will pass and you won't, because I was looking at the clock.
We need to adjourn it.
Yes. So I need a motion and a second to adjourn
Motion.
audit committee. Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have the finance committee. And we have the treasurer's report, or we have the treasurer's report right now for IDA.
To, as you can see from the P&L, our assets primarily consist of bank accounts, which have total balance of $58,596. Our current liabilities include $22,499 due to CEDC, plus the current $2,500. And you'll recall, we deferred that fee because we didn't want to complete the bank account down to a level that didn't give the organization the ability to operate. When we give our administrative report during the full board meeting, you'll see that there is some potential to be able to not only pay that fee, but significantly increase the book balance at the bank in 2025. Again, moving to the P&L, we did receive administrative fees this year of 224 of 26,500. They primarily consisted of a fee from the Wick Hotel closing, as well as the $1,000 a year, Lisa. There's 15, yeah, $1,000 or $1,500 a year for existing projects, which at this point was only the Wick. So our application and fees were $7,000. That included the WIC's fee on the refinancing, as well as the BAC sale. I'm hoping to be able to get that project back on target 2025. Our expenses, $24,000, include $1,000 in legal fees, the $89.50 for the auditor, the administrative expense, which you deferred, although it's accrued, and $1,481 for insurance. And we had for a net operating balance, net operating profit of $9,482. On the other income and expense line, you'll recall we collect pilot payments, and we then immediately go and reallocate those pilot payments to the county, town, and school district based on the percentage of the total tax that each of them represent. So the school district gets generally about 50% of the total, the county about 20%, the town is about 10%. So we show that as an in and out, so as not to create noise and trying to evaluate the operating income and expense and net income budget. I believe this year it is positive by $9,500. Last year it was negative. So the refinancing of the WIC was helpful to the organization because, as you can see, if we took $26,000 out of the $58,000 that was in the bank and you paid CDC, we might be considered an ongoing concern. But I think we're looking up when we get into discussing projects. Are there any?
Does the Hudson income come in here?
No, the Hudson pilots payments go to the city of Hudson IDA. The WIC, remember, was financed by the county IDA as an exception. So the WIC payments come in here and go back out.
But don't you administer the?
Right, we do, but as a separate entity. So like their own, we have a separate set of books that the city treasurer keeps on the city IDA. We thought about commingling funds, but it would be wrong.
I thought they gave us a favor for.
They pay CDC.
CDC,
They pay,
okay.
yeah, they do pay us.
All right, thanks.
It gets confusing.
So what we're gonna need is a motion and a second to accept the treasurer's report. Motion. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving along, we have the consent agenda. Right, your minutes, your finance charter review, 2024 discharge of duties, 2024 committee evaluation, 2024 investment reports. Any questions or comments? Or if not, is there any public comments? No, so if not, we would need a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda.
I make that motion.
Second. Anybody in favor?
Aye.
And what we're gonna need is a motion and a second to close. The IDA Finance Committee. So moved. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have to open the government's committee meeting. And basically, this is the consent agenda items. You've got a, Lisa, on the committee evaluations, is a separate vote.
Shouldn't. Yeah. Sorry, that was my mistake on that. I should have come off.
Okay. So. Any public comments? We need a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Could you ask Chris to come in? He just arrived.
Just need to adjourn that. we can.
Yeah, we just need we need to adjourn the meeting, we need a motion and a second to adjourn.
Motion.
Second,
All those in favor?
I,
Okay. What we'll do now is reopen the IDA meeting. Full board meeting. And the first, well, we got the slate of directors. We did that. I think we did that. Yeah. And you got your annual housekeeping
Yeah.
resolution, which is basically everything we just went over, we're just going over. So we need a motion in a second on that.
roll call.
Okay, if you want.
Okay,
Do you want to? Make a roll call?
well, it says roll call.
It does? I only write it, I don't. Okay, so. Carmen Piero,
Yes.
Bob Lucio,
Yes.
Bill Gerlach,
Here.
Ellen Kozel.
Here.
Sarah Sterling.
Here.
Let's see, Brian Keeler. He's absent.
Absolutely.
We do have a quorum. Did I call it?
Uh,
Captain, never mind, I got you.
Yeah. Yes. Cool.
So you have to do the housekeeping resolution? That's where you are now, right?
we speak up.
That's just a roll call vote
Oh, sorry.
for the housekeeping resolution.
Okay, so that's fine.
So it's,
Now we're back at one.
My report,
we're all set, that's passed. Correct, so
Yes.
Mike?
Great. Basically, as you know, we did do do the assumption and assignment of the benefits that the agency had offered and the WIC had accepted back in 7 years ago for the purchase by Ben Fain. Ben is the gentleman that bought the Kaz property, and he also owns Kitty's and the Caboose, which is he reconstructed the railroad loading house that was across the street from the train station. He's got great plans for the Kaz property. But you know, that would be done by the city IDA now that they're up and running. We did review the finances at the finance committee, and they'll be included in they were included in the approval by the board. We also approved as part of the consent agenda the UHY annual audit engagement letter that was recommended by the finance committee. Jumping down to the various projects that are listed at the bottom of the page. 8 Bender Boulevard in the Commerce Center is the 1 acre parcel of land that is between Fomatic and Harvest. And Mr. Harvest needed it so that he could get the turning radiuses and footprint that he wanted for the property that he purchased several years ago to comply with the Town of Cloudbrook Planning Board. That project is before the planning board. We did authorize and we did sign a purchase and sale contract, and Andy's been monitoring that. I did submit on behalf of the IDA a request for a lot line adjustment to the collaborative planning board last week that was prepared by Crawford Associates. So that is moving forward. And I believe we get $90,000 when we sell that property. 41 Cross is the Wick Hotel we've already discussed. 27 Summit Street in Philmont is it's an old mill up at the pond, on the pond side that they're not proposing large development on. There's very little parking there, but they have proposed a banquet facility. They had initially looked at affordable housing, but were discouraged by the village that they had felt they had sufficient affordable housing in the village. The result is that they did get a $1.5 million Restore New York grant, and they're redoing their financials so they can get financing, and then they'll be coming to the IDA. They did submit a draft application, but it is not been finalized, and we have not yet received the formal signed application with a application fee. It would be a significant project. The Labella project, I understand, is before the Timberhook Planning Board, and there were some issues that they're trying to resolve with DOT with respect to access.
Is that the full project, Mike?
It's a scaled back project. I think it'll be more in the $6 million range than the $10 million range. But we have the River Street Mill housing project in Malaysia. That was a project that we've been talking with Rob Fitzsimmons and the elected officials in the village of Malaysia for several years. It is back off the main street, and their developer from Troy had it under contract for 29 units, and he decided not to pursue it. The village hired a real estate broker, and we've had 3 inquiries about the project, including one who has asked for IDA application and information on what benefits that the IDA could provide. We also have been discussing the 178 Gilly Boulevard project. That was the project that Redburn Development had submitted an application for 2 years ago. They had an issue with respect to the proposed assessment that the town was preparing to advise them that they would apply to the project. You recall that the supervisor was willing to recommend to the IDA a very aggressive pilot to be able to get those units because they need the affordable housing. The result was that it was under a new law, if you are receiving more than 30% of federal, state, and local incentives or benefits, you have to pay prevailing wage rate for the construction. And Redburn could not make the numbers work if they were paying union labor rates. So there was also some discussion that perhaps their option had expired and that there was potential litigation between Redburn and the owner to make a determination as to whether they still had any rights to proceed with the project after they reached an agreement with the assessor. And it ended up that they decided to move on. But one of the developers is fairly sophisticated. It's a company by the name of Kempner, Kempner, out of White Plains. And they were looking at partnering with Baxter, which is the contractor that Galvin is using for the building you see being built out here, but they have a real estate development subsidiary as well. So, they're also talking with the planning board. I think it's going to be 2 buildings rather than 1. The Redburn proposal was 150 unit building, 4-story. I anecdotally said it looked like Queen Mary. But I think they're looking at, two smaller buildings that would be built in phases, phase 1 and phase 2, so that they wouldn't be stuck with absorption of the units by having all of them built at once. So we're very optimistic about both of those housing projects. We also have had discussions with several others. And if we could take a minute, Mr. Chairman, Chris Brown, our CEDC's housing coordinator, which is a position funded by the Board of Supervisors. And Chris manages the county's affordable housing task force for the supervisors, as well as does our housing work here. I'll just give you a brief overview of his work and also some of the new rules that the governor has put in place with respect to affordable housing.
Good morning, everyone. Here, it's a little bit easier. There's a lot going on. There are a few projects that weren't listed that are just fairly new. New Lebanon, there is a proposal for 20 affordable units. 80% of those will be for seniors and a grocery store. That's a project that is a combination of local investors, the president of New Lebanon's Farmers Market, most importantly, Hudson River Housing from Dutchess County. So it's another housing nonprofit that's coming up to the county. We also have a project going to the planning board in Stockport this month, about 100 units of some kind of mix of rental and affordable, we hope, or rental and home ownership, we hope. Single family homes, yeah, not multifamily, big units. At the state level, there's the Pro Housing Communities Program. Just a quick overview of this. This is it's the carrots approach, the governor likes to call it. So if a community, whether it's a town, a village, or a city, counties can't do it. If they become pro housing certified, they get access to a significant amount of funding. It's close to $700 million in both old programs and new programs. We're the first county in the state to have all of our communities submit letters of intent. We're about halfway through the certification process. We've got 12 of the 23 communities currently certified. The other big thing that came out within the past few days, a lot's been going on. There's this program called New York Housing for the Future. There's 2 tranches to this. The rental side of this has come out. This is a loan program that has incredibly friendly terms, and it goes up to 130% of AMI. So this is a true workforce program for new builds, for renovations. You can use it for acquisition. So there's quite a bit of flexibility with that program.
AMI is?
Oh, sorry, area median income. So this is a number that the federal government basically attributes to. Usually it's metropolitan statistical areas. For Columbia County, it's the entire county. So the base level is they take a 4-person household. They say that the median income for that household is $106,000, give or take $400. And then they figure out what the rest of the AMI is per household size. So right now in the county, if you're an individual, so if your household is just one person, 100% of the AMI is about $84,000. There aren't a lot of units out there for people below that level. I do a bi-weekly audit of rentals and then housing, home sales prices. And there's usually not a lot below 1,600, which is about the make or break point for somebody at an individual at 80% of AMI. Anything past that, and they're what we call housing cost burden.
And what was the percentage between 2019 and 2024 that the median sale price in Columbia County of a single family home rose?
84%. Wages did not increase by that amount.
From 240,000 to over 500. We were the second highest in the 7-county Mid-Hudson region, with Sullivan County being the highest because they started at 180,000 for their.
I think it might have been even lower than that, yeah. But yeah, so our metrics are still not trending the way that we want them to, but there is a lot of attention being brought to it, not just from the state level, but also from the partnerships we've formed throughout the county and also regionally. We administer the Columbia County Land Bank here at CEDC. The land bank is set to acquire its first couple of properties sometime in the next couple of months. Depends on when the county foreclosure.
Chris was instrumental in establishing that and getting the supervisors interested in creating it. And 30-second, how does the land bank work?
So what land banks are built to do is to take properties, typically foreclosed properties, about 8% of properties get transferred into land banks. So the real term is vacant, tax delinquent, or abandoned. So land banks take these properties on. They are very often the worst of the worst from foreclosure sales. Use state money to do some of the things that developers would rather not do, like ESAs, which are environmental assessments. some of the pre-development work that they would have to do anyway, but they might not get any return on that investment. So the land bank can take care of that for them. Then the idea is to turn this over to developers, specifically of affordable housing. We're really focused on vacant lots. Taking on buildings can be a nightmare. So we're looking at vacant lots partially from not wanting to rehabilitate a vacant building perspective, but also from the perspective of if the town was collecting, say, $4,000 a year in taxes on a vacant lot, you develop it, now they're collecting $15,000 a year. That's a significant benefit to each of the towns that we work with.
And your accessory dwelling unit program.
Oh yeah, I just got all the applications this morning. So we won a grant last year, technically last year. $2 million from the state for accessory dwelling units. We're partnering with Rutco. We partner with them on the grant application and on the administration of the project. We'll be able to afford to build 14 of these. Every applicant requests the full amount, which is $125,000, plus a little bit for administration fees. And we've been working with a number of tiny home and small home developers who have some interesting products. So if someone's building a brand new ADU, they've got access to that, but they can also convert basement, they can convert garage, they can convert attic space. There's a number of ways to build ADUs.
And Chris gets a lot of credit not only for his work on creating the land bank, getting the ADU grant, but also putting us in the position of being the first county in the state to get all of the municipalities to sign letters of intent to participate in the pro-housing community program, which is a requirement now for any state grant. If you're not a pro-housing community, whether it's housing or not, I understand.
For some of them require you to be certified. All of them include pro-housing as a scored metric. So whether or not you actually are a certified pro-housing community, the state wants to know, have you at least started the process? Where are you with it? So
and where are we in terms of 18 towns, 4 villages and city? How many are now been submitted to be certified?
12.
12.
No, well, submitted to be certified is 13. Actually certified is 12. So we're working through it. It was a little, before about 2 months ago, the towns and the villages were pretty much doing most of that work on their own and then just funneling it through us. The rest of the towns were pretty much doing that work here. But Alondra and I are setting up meetings with the building departments and code enforcement departments of the remaining towns and villages to get all their building permit data. So we should have everything done by the time CFAs get released this spring.
I may exaggerate modestly, but when you look at our 18 towns, with the exception of perhaps the town clerk and the highway department, there are no full-time employees in our towns. So sometimes get this work done and recognizing many of the supervisors have day jobs. Chris has really taken on the responsibility. And here's what the governor said at her press conference. I just want to highlight one place, Columbia County, where housing prices have skyrocketed since the pandemic. We have parts of our state that were undiscovered except by local residents until the pandemic, when a lot of people fled New York City and came to the Hudson Valley. So what happened was they just drove up demand for housing and people could charge more, and that they just priced so many families out of existence. And so we wanted to make sure that we have done everything we can. And what we've done is include them, and we want to thank them, Columbia County, for stepping up, because they have demonstrated the commitment that it takes to do exactly what we're talking about. What we have is, through the regional councils, we have awarded more than $320 million for projects, and 23 municipalities within Columbia County have decided to apply for those funds. So, it was a great shout out and a great recognition of the work that the Board of Supervisors have undertaken to address this issue, as they did with broadband. And we're very grateful and compliment Chris on his work.
I should mention, to Mike's point about the projects, the programs not necessarily being housing programs. One of the recipients the governor handed one of the giant checks to at that event was ROI. It's not a housing project, but the program that they received the funding from is now behind pro housing. So it's whether it's infrastructure, whether in that case, I think it was an arts grant. So there are several grants and programs that you now need to be certified, or at least.
And it was $1 million grant. Also, Hawthorne Valley Farms got $1 million plus,
25, I think.
For a zero neutral energy component of their project. This all is relevant because we're going to have at least 2 housing projects before us within the next month or two. many IDAs have established uniform tax exemption policies for housing projects that, normally we have a 10-year uniform policy that says, we still have to review it and approve it. It's not as of right, but we offer without having to request a deviation, 50% discount the first year down to 0% the last year for regular projects, and for industrial projects, 95% exemption down to 0 over 10 years. You can't really do a housing project that with affordable income restrictions on a 10-year basis. The Galvin project behind us is on a 20-year pilot. And Chris and I have been looking at IDAs our size and around the state. I always like to look at the 10 counties above us and the 10 counties below us on population-wise. We've also looked at some of our neighboring Hudson Valley counties. Several have predetermined schedules for housing. I'm not sure we know enough about it yet to decide what we want to lock into, but you will be having to evaluate whether or not you're willing to give a housing project where there are some income restrictions to ensure that there's units available for people who can afford them by deviating from our uniform policy. So I just kind of wanted to get that thought process started. And we may put something together to circulate before the next meeting and have a presentation. But it is, if you had a report that showed the 50% of the workforce in the top 5 industries in the county, they couldn't afford to live here. That wasn't.
50% of our workforce is below 80% of AMI, and 75% of our workforce is below 100% of AMI. So the workforce being the jobs, so not the people that have jobs elsewhere. These are the actual jobs in the county. So 75% of the jobs in the county pay below what is considered the area median income.
So when you start to think about it, we looked at it, if you had $150,000 a year of household income, which is at the upper, it's 140% of
2 people, it's about 140. Yeah.
140%. You could, at median income, you couldn't afford a $175,000 house, and there aren't any. And so what we're really concerned about is if you don't already live here, you can't come here to work. You can't move here to work.
And we find, I know our unemployment numbers are held up as a goal to achieve. Once you reach a certain low number in unemployment numbers, it becomes difficult for new businesses to open because there's not enough of what they call like labor reserve ready to take on those jobs or to switch jobs.
And for 5 years, we've been tied, either the lowest or tied for the lowest unemployment in the state. We're at 2.3%, 2.7%, tied with Saratoga County, which is just got crazy growing.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that's 800 people who are available. The other point is that we've had several people look at the Flanders property. It's 150,000 square feet. It's ready to move in. It's in reasonably good shape. There are the issues that I think I've previously mentioned, that there's a 7-year lease that Flanders has, and the owner doesn't really care because Flanders is paying the rent. But each of them have said to me on the way out, now, of course, you can guarantee me 120 employees on day 1, right? And so what I did do is I went out and I got a radius report, which you get from these companies, 10 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles. Well, there's 850,000 people within 30 miles of here. Of course, I can get you 120, but I wouldn't want to have to deliver those. So you can see, we're restricted in housing because we only have 6 sewer districts. So it's impossible to build multifamily housing in communities that don't have water and sewer. So it's a real crisis. And we're grateful to the supervisors for awarding us ARPA money under a grant to have Chris do this work. And I think the IDA is going to have the opportunity to decide how it wants to evaluate these projects going forward.
That's what, this is a real problem, keeping the young people in this here. This, you know,
That
it's,
problem's gonna take care of itself pretty soon because we don't have a lot of young people anymore.
well, they're just moving out, so I mean, it's just.
Yeah. A question about this, you know, I always hear this AMI and the 106,000 or something like that, and I thought, well, I don't know anybody that's making that kind of money, and then when you say 75%,
For,
That's for a household of 4 people. So if you had 2 income earners, they'd be both be
so
about.
what about one income?
So one income, 100% of AMI is about 84,000 and 80% is about 75.
Yeah.
But that's why he's saying 75% of the people working in the
But
county
nobody's
are below it.
making that, so how do we even have that?
We have a significant amount of people that are making that amount of
I
money
guess,
elsewhere in the
yeah.
county. Hillsdale and Austerlitz are 2 of the wealthiest parts of the county.
Huh.
They just aren't.
I think, Sarah, you're absolutely right if it's a single household.
Right.
But, you know, you're looking at a household
Two
where,
incomes,
where there's two $40,000 incomes or a 60 and a 20, you get into that 80, but you can't live on that. You know,
The average wage is much lower than the median wage.
Yeah.
Much lower.
well, that's why you said 75% of the people working in the county are below that.
Yeah,
35% of the residents of the county go out of the county in the morning to work, but we think about the same amount of people come into the county from other places to work.
that was my next question, is when you're talking that number, how many of those people are actually making that, working in the county?
Yeah, that was one of, so we are this year as the Housing Task Force, tackling an employee survey. This is kind of the white whale of housing data, finding out information from people who work here but don't live here because they don't come to town meetings, they don't answer town surveys, they don't live here, they don't consider themselves residents or citizens of the county. So we're going to speak to as many employers and employees as we can. We found a couple of good examples of employee surveys out there. This is a little bit sensitive because you don't want to go to the employers with, you know, the pitch of, hey, we don't think you pay your employees enough. We're here to find out more about that. We're really trying to figure out if you don't work in the county, or if you don't live in the county but work in the county, if you want to live here, what's stopping you? I mean, I was in that boat. For a year before I started working at CDC, I was working in Pittsfield. I wanted to live in Chatham because I didn't want to live in the same place that I worked for reasons. I spent a year trying to find an apartment in Chatham. Not one came up that was in my pay scale or what I could afford.
So we, you know, and when you start to look at this, you know, if you take the 29 units in Malaysia, what's the price tag on that? Do you remember?
Those are going to be market
You know, the
rates.
project cost.
Oh, I don't remember his project cost.
But you know, we could have $50 million of projects in the next year and a half here, which would bring in $500,000 in fees.
We have an idea how many people, total jobs here, how many people are actually working here in Columbia County?
Yes.
It's about 2,000. No, it's 2,000 businesses.
No, it's more than that.
And it's
Yeah.
20, we can get you that.
I think we're down to 20,000 people. I know that we've had our workforce has reduced in size by about 12% in the past 10 years.
Okay.
7%, excuse me. That's total.
We'll have Alondra send you the lake pass report that the Labor Department just sent us.
That would be great.
And they're projecting our population will go down and it will even get older.
Yeah, we're number 2 in the state for the percentage of our workforce that is aged 55 and up. We're really number 1 because number 1 is Hamilton County, but they don't count. They're the least densely populated county east of the Mississippi. So they're an outlier of many things.
And you know, our sales tax is down $1 million. Now, it's not down $1 million from 2019 when it jumped 30%, but it's down $1 million. And you know, part of it was right when COVID hit and all the people either went to the homes that they had or moved into second homes that they purchased. They did a lot of renovations and repairs. You put up with a lot of stuff in a second home if you're not there every day, but you know, you're gonna fix the leaky faucet if you're there every day. And so there was a lot of construction work done. And, you know, and then a lot of people were, I think the more people were here, the less they went to restaurants and they started cooking themselves. And you could really start to see how it slowed down. And it's a concern to the county supervisors in terms of, you know, although they, you know, did reduce taxes and this year they, you know, $1 million off your budget is $1 million, whether your budget is 200 million or 50 million.
And that is one of the occupation categories that we saw the steepest drop off from percentage wise since 2020 is construction real estate.
What's the biggest contributor to sales tax? Auto sales and gasoline?
Gasoline and construction materials before.
Okay.
It's all good stuff, but, you know, when you look at the city IDA, they have $60 million of projects on the table. So we're going to just continue, but where are we going to find the people to work, to do the jobs that will attract the people who are going to fill these new hotels and these new facilities? And Ellen, you know how hard it was
It is, it's very hard.
to get labor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chris, I just had a question. On the land bank, you said the land bank takes these properties, well, not delinquents or, and when you go through and do everything, and somebody comes in and says, all right, I want to build on that property, you give them the property, or they have to?
That's up to the land bank board. My preference would be to get your costs back. If you're still giving somebody, you know, a property that's basically shovel ready.
Well, that was right, yeah. If you're doing the environmentals and.
You're doing a lot of pre-development work.
There's a lot of uncertainty, although the land bank, the state does fund the land bank at minimum of 100 grand a year,
100 grand.
isn't it? The administrative.
Oh, for the individual land banks?
No, for the administrative fee.
Yeah, $100,000 is the least that we can get, yeah.
So remember, in the old days, when you didn't pay $20,000 on your real property tax, the county came in and after 3 years, they sold it for 200,000 and they kept the 180,000. They didn't give it back to you. That's why your bank stepped in and bought the, you know, paid the tax or bought the property for the mortgage. But Supreme Court ruled 2 years ago, or almost 3,
May 23.
that that was unconstitutional. And some lady in Colorado, you know, said, wait a minute, I owed $10,000 in taxes and I had a $300,000 house. So what the land bank was doing, the county would take the property and then sell it. And it was a large part of the county's income, several $1 million a year from the sale of these properties. So it's not exactly clear how this is all going to work, but you know, there were only 3 land bank contracts left. The state legislature had to approve them. And so we felt that it was very important to get one. And if we don't feel that it's useful going forward in the long term under the new rules, you can always abandon it. But you probably, like CEDC, ask them to give you $5 grand a year to keep it running.
No,
It's a good tool.
going back in the car business, I'm going back 40 years ago. We used to take repos in. That was always the rule. If the car come in and somebody owed 5,000, we turn around, fix it up, and maybe sell it for 7 or 8. We had to turn that money back to the
Yeah,
it was always like that.
but not when the county took your property and.
No, I know some of the
But the
numbers.
government was selling cars away.
So you can see, the other thing that, you know, Steve Vanderberg and Martha Lane are here. We did, over the last 10 years, CEDC has done $5.6 million in small business loans to over 250 small businesses. We've made $700,000 in interest on those loans, and we only had $150,000 of write-offs. And we put all of the interest back into the loan fund so that it's available for future borrowers. So,
Just like the banks do.
so we got, you know, to give you a sense of all the things that are going on here and also being your role in the community. We're always open for loan businesses to startups and small businesses, generally $25,000 to $50,000 loans.
They all start, they're not all startups. We help businesses.
Yeah.
If
It's a
there's
great portfolio, though.
a little problem.
It's performing well.
Yeah. I don't think this is wood, so I'm out of luck. I wouldn't have paid for wood. These were $200 a piece. So when we saw that what it would cost to get a table big enough for a board, we said.
What a good press board, right?
Yeah, they're good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Are there any other questions on anything we had here? Any public comments? Nobody has, no. So what we need to do is, I need a vote on the consent agenda. You know, motion and a second. Accept.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mike gave his report on the projects. No other questions? We need a motion.
So moved.
And a second
Second.
to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Well said. Thank you, everybody.
Who's this one?
All right.